So let's just do a little 2 or 3 movements in a little session, putting it together just by arching and flattening your lower back. Let's start there because it's quite a good awareness exercise, movement. Noticing your lower back, noticing your pelvis, noticing the pubic bone in your ribs, how it all moves. So if you push your feet gently into the floor, you can then tilt the pelvis back, so you flatten the back, and then you let go of that pressure, you arch the back. Just noticing that roll of the pelvis, pubic bone coming towards your ribs as you push your feet down, and then you create that space, you let go as you let go of the feet. Some of us can be in this tightened up position and not even be aware of it, which creates tightness in your gut, tightness around the liver, in your abdominals, in your hips, and more inhibition and weakness in your back. So if you've got back pain, it might be because you're holding on too much here. You might need to do some release of your abdominals. So just bringing that awareness to what's going on. And then can you notice where halfway is? Can you find where your halfway point is? And then can you pick up one foot, put it down, pick up the other foot, put it down, without losing that halfway point. So the gap between the ribs and the hips stays the same. So we're going to keep we're just doing a couple on each side, and we're going to keep this one up here and start to draw a circle. So if you can keep your pelvis steady, you can lengthen, you can lengthen your other leg away from you, but if your pelvis tends to move a lot, then bend your knee and then reverse the circle. So do 2 or 3 circles in each direction, 2 or 3 in one direction and then 2 or 3 in the other direction. And then bring the foot down and change sides. But if you find it tricky to draw a circle, maybe the hip is a little bit tight on one side. Imagine on the ceiling you've got a clock face or a cross, and you're going to touch each point with your knee as it goes around. You can always put your hand on your knee to help guide it. And then go back the other way. But if you're doing that, try not to let your shoulder come forward. You're resting the top of the arm on the floor. Yeah, so it's not your foot doing the movement, it's this leg, it's your femur. And you're circling deep inside of the hip socket, the ball and socket joint, so really deep inside there. Okay, so roll yourself over onto your side, come and rest for a moment, and then put your feet together and lift your knee and come back down. Keep the pelvis in the same position so your hip faces forward. And then keep the knees together and lift the top foot. Ooh. And then roll yourself back onto your spine. Let your palms face the ceiling, so the back of the hands on the floor. Press your feet into the floor as the back drops down into the mat, and you start to scoop up. So you start to lift your tailbone, lift your sacrum, lift your pelvis, lift the lower ribs, and then come back down. So keep your chin down towards your throat, so your gaze is towards your knees. You're not looking behind you, you don't want to arch your neck. You're letting the back drop down and you're lifting up towards your shoulder blades and then coming back down. Can you notice if your feet are feeling the same? You've got the ball of the big toe and the ball of the little toe and the heel here, back of the heel. Can you keep equal pressure on all 3 points on both feet as you work through this movement? So your toes aren't lifting, you're not lifting the feet, because that will detract from the work that you want from here and the glutes to help extend the pelvis and get this mobility in the spine. Get the spine moving and the pelvis, noticing that, and the precision of your hip bones feeling equal and level, having that awareness of what's happening up here in the sternum as well. So lots to think about. Okay, so you're going to put one hand behind the head, hug the other knee in towards you, and come across. So you're going across the body. So rib cage goes across to the opposite hip. You can feel that you're leading from the forehead, so you're not overusing your jaw. It's not a lengthening from your lower neck here. So if you feel that you're leading from the forehead, your chin will drop and your neck will lengthen at the back. And you'll start to lift a little bit more from the lower shoulder blade and your mid-ribs, mid-back. And then change sides. So it's rib cage across to the opposite hip. Exhale as you go, because as you're coming up, you're going to push all the air out. And just notice if one side feels different to the other. You're trying not to squeeze your glutes, you're going to be tucking under, the pelvis is relaxed. And then roll yourself over onto the other side. And we'll do the leg on the other side. So resting your head, bending the knees, and lifting and lowering that top knee. La la la. There you go. And then lift and lower the top foot. And then roll back over. No, actually, let's roll over onto the front. Let's finish on the front. Oh, come up onto your elbows. Like that. Hands are flat. Forearms on the floor. Tuck your tailbone underneath you a little bit so the front of the pelvis is touching the mat and your ribs, so you're not sinking down. Your ribs are just off the floor. And breathe into your lower belly, so below your navel. And you breathe into that part of your body. As you stay lifted, so think about heart going up between your shoulder blades. If my hand was between your shoulder blades, your heart would be lifting up to my shoulder blades, to my hand. Between your shoulder blades. Can you hold that position? It's quite tricky, yes? Can you bend one knee and then put it down? Change legs. Change legs. Change legs. Oh, you try not to sink or lift your head. Try not to lift your chin and try not to sink down into your ribs as you do that. And then come down and rest. Come back into child's pose. So toes together, knees apart, let your head come down. And if your head doesn't rest down onto the floor, put your hands or a cushion or a blanket underneath your head so you could rest there. So you're not feeling that your head's off the floor. Okay, come up into a seated position, which is where we will finish. So let me move that a little bit. There you go. Okay, so if you don't like sitting cross-legged, you could sit on a chair, or if you're in your front room, go and sit on your sofa. Or you can bring your legs out in front like that, or straight, bent or straight. Put your hands together, put your thumbs on your chest bone, on your sternum, and turn to one side, and then come back and turn to the other side. So as you turn, notice your sit bones, the base of your pelvis, the bony bits, stay equal. Sometimes when we turn, if we're not aware, we tend to overwork the side of the back or the side of the body and tend to bring the ribs down and shorten the waist on one side, and it ends up being a little bit of a tilted turn, and you can overwork the lower back or overwork the neck. And trying to then look over your shoulder when you do that can be a little bit tricky, and then you strain your neck. So try and have your waist equal on both sides as you turn. And keeping your thumbs on your chest bone stops you from just doing this with your arms and missing out on this rotation in the thoracic spine. That's why your hands are there. You're not praying for less back pain. You're just noticing, being aware, just creating more of a restraint around here and your shoulders. And more awareness of your thoracic spine and that rotation. So if you're turning to your left, think about your left shoulder blade gently nudging towards your spine. And then if you're going to the other side, that shoulder blade nudges towards your spine. Yeah, and then come back and rest. Happy practicing. Nice little simple little routine, putting a few little of the exercises together. It's a little taster. Happy practicing.